Hello and a warm welcome to another episode. Today, I welcome two go-to-market experts from SAP, Kilian and Giuseppe. The era of growth at all costs is over. Go-to-market alignment drives go-to-market efficiency. Or as Giuseppe put it, if you sell to the wrong customer or fail to define the right value drivers in the selling process, it's very hard to keep and expand that customer. Without further ado, welcome Kilian and Giuseppe. So Kilian and Giuseppe, it's a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure
for having us,
here.
Björn. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we brought a very special topic. So it became sexy and I think top of mind 1 year, 2 years ago. So it's called go-to-market efficiency and growth. And we will talk about go-to-market alignment as a key factor to make it happen. But before we do so, I'd like to give a little bit of background to you guys, a brief introduction, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Sure. Kilian, you go first.
Okay. It's one of the rare occasions I'm allowed to go first. Normally he starts. Okay, so this time it's me. So yeah, my name is Kilian from Dosky. I'm part of the WalkMe Go-to-Market Center of Excellence at SAP. So basically what we're looking after is one of the latest acquisitions that SAP did, so WalkMe, and I'm in charge of the post-merger integration from a go-to-market perspective.
All right. And Giuseppe.
So, Giuseppe. So I'm partner in crime Kilian in the WalkMe integration acquisition. We worked together a lot since the Signavio acquisition, and together we worked on Signavio integration, Inex integration, and now WalkMe to basically complete the business transformation vision of SAP. And recently I basically shifted a little bit the focus. I changed role, and I'm on now part of WalkMe, and they're helping the CEO Adika to really building all the bridges across the go-to-market organization. So happy to be here.
I'm super thrilled to have both of you in one virtual room. So I would say let's dive into and come to the crunchy part. So the growth of all cost is gone. So I think this is unquestionable. And one of the tools and techniques is kind of to align the entire go-to-market motion and all the different departments and stakeholders. So I'm super curious. So maybe in your perspective, what changed over the last, let's say, 2 years, potentially last year?
Yeah, maybe I can start. I mean, as you said, we see like everywhere, and we experience like on our daily job, like the golden era is gone, right? It's not anymore 2019, 2020, where like there was a lot of focus on fast growth, okay? And little less focus on how we drive profitability from process and alignment. Right now, the macro environment is different, the capital is more constrained, and basically everybody is focused on, the focus shifted to sustainable growth, right? Where basically it's not anymore like the game is not anymore to scaling up quickly, but actually scaling up in a smart way, right? What do you think, Kilian?
No, exactly, Giuseppe. And like you said, I mean, businesses today and SaaS businesses, they cannot only focus on growth anymore. It's about efficiency and profitability. And we see it a lot. I mean, also now with the companies that we're working with, right? NLR, for example, is under deep pressure, right? Like you said, Giuseppe, it's not only, let's say, on the SaaS B2B company side, but then also on the buyer side, right? A lot of customers are actually currently revisiting what they bought during the growth at all cost era. I mean, they're consolidating their tech stack, moving more to platforms instead of best of breed, right? So they need to deal with those constraints, right, that are in the market. And while growth is still critical, it's still not only about growing, but also in an efficient way, right? And efficiency is always about cutting costs, right? It's also about being smarter with what you have and allocating the resources and the money that you have in the right way. And I mean, also, of course, also bringing AI into the play now, which will put a lot of pressure on B2B SaaS companies going forward.
Yeah, I'm super excited to touch this, to address the elephant in the room. So what does AI? What is the impact of AI? But before we do so let's dive a little bit deeper into the root causes of this inefficiencies we see across, not just in your case, across
in your go-to-market motions. So let's dive into the root cause first, and then we'll tackle AI.
Yeah, I mean that absolutely, and here I believe that go-to-market alignment or misalignment has a big role, right? Because it's essentially, I mean, the how we were used to operate like in siloed execution, I mean, doesn't work anymore, and creates a lot of pressure, right? Creates a lot of pressure internally in the organization, like, because at the end, as Kina said before, I mean, we don't double down on what works and remove the waste, but create a lots of inefficiency around the process that basically make organization not leveraging at the best of resources that they have. And this ultimately, and this is probably the most impacting thing, could have a negative effect on the customer, right? On how we approach the customer, on how we ultimately drive value for customers.
Could you just elaborate a little bit more, because I think this is super helpful to dive even into more details, Giuseppe.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, look, there are like lots of things that we saw during like our experience, especially in BTM, right? Where across all the organization that we worked on, we have like we see common, like we say, pattern, right? Where you have like focus and investment on certain parts of the organization that are really not like finding like the right synergies with adjacent organization. For example, I mean, one thing that we always see in happening is that marketing team is focused on maximize the NQL, maximize the pipeline. But then at the end of the day, I mean, we're gonna have like friction with sales, because the conversion is not adequate, right? So I mean, what does it mean? Where is like the problem? Is that are we really doing something wrong in marketing, doing something wrong in sales? Probably the thing is that we are not like working together across like focusing to the same like ICP, focusing on what matters and aligning the strategy in the field. This is one of the things that we see commonly, right, Kilian? What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, I think you touched upon an interesting point, right? I mean, also from a strategy perspective, right? Because this is very often where it starts, right? That from the top management, right, there also needs to be very clear direction to the whole organization on how does our go-to-market strategy look like, where we want to focus, and what are the different things that we need from the different teams to execute upon. And this is where we also see, I mean, talking about the root causes, Björn, right, where it very often starts, right? So there's, first of all, not enough direction sometimes, right? And there's not necessarily sometimes also, a clear mandate on who's owning go-to-market, or even a clear definition of what does go-to-market entail, right? So I think you will meet a lot of people who would say, yeah, go-to-market is top funnel, which we all know is not true, right? It expands beyond just, closing the deal. It's more important even to then work the deal afterwards in customer success, making customers successful. But then also includes things like product, right? And how do you close the loop with product? So you could say go-to-market plus, right? Rather, to make sure that product is, catching the feedback from the market and is developing the right features which are actually required by our customers. And I mean, also product keeping go-to-market, sane, right? It's not only about the short term, but that you also, follow up on your product vision and strategy. So very often we see it starts at the top.
Yes, absolutely. With the question, and as you said, Kilian, I mean, if I may add, like who owns the go-to-market is always like a great question. If you ask like 5 people, you have like 10 answers, right? It's very complex. I mean, sometimes can be like the problem is intuitive, okay, but in the end, the solution is very tricky. And to complete also what you said, Kilian, one other thing that is important is to build like the data foundation to really understand how the go-to-market works, right? To have like clear the unit economics that are driving like the business and make it successful. To have like a framework that spans across like what Jaakko calls the bow tie. I mean, from the demand generation to the expansion, and have like to have a clear understanding and visibility of how the machine overall works, right? This is always like again fragmented in the different silos, and you always struggle like to have the full picture. So, and understanding where we have like the challenges and what works that can be repeated. So that's another thing that I experienced. And then I mean, last but not least, I mean, Kilian, we know we worked a lot on this also. To drive the right behavior, I mean, you need to have the right incentives that are like triggering that behavior. And sometimes, I mean, also this part we see that is like broken across the both eye, and it's incentivize like vertical behavior, yes, but at the end, I mean, not something that is like extremely beneficial for the overall machine. What do you think, Kilian?
No, absolutely on point, Giuseppe. And I mean, because talking about root causes, right? We already talked about the ownership. I mean, we talked about the data model, the incentives. And the fourth one that I would add that we sometimes also still experience is there's still not a unified understanding of, let's say, first principles. How does SaaS work, right? And I mean, like I, for example, mentioned, Björn, right? If you would ask people what is go-to-market, some would still say it stops at, customer selected the vendor and that's where it stops, right?
Or it's
But it doesn't.
introducing a new product or service. So I hear it.
Yeah.
So just
Yes.
market entry, and then miraculously it stops.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's also what we're seeing, but I mean, that is one crucial thing, right? Because when you understand this, you also realize over time, the majority of your cloud revenue will not come from new customer acquisition. The majority of your growth in your revenue base will actually come from your install base. And that's also how you need to run your go-to-market and need to be focused on customer success and customer value a lot, right?
Yeah. So I really like your summary, because I think it cannot be stressed enough. So one thing is it's a leadership and kind of the general understanding, and then the structural basically translation is number one. Because if you don't have an aligned understanding about go-to-market and the key stakeholders and how they play together, so that's number one. Then Giuseppe, you mentioned the data model and basically how SaaS works, whether it's principle first or we combine this. And then I think, and we'll touch this later, it's also the incentive. So at least 3, debatable 4, but if this is not lived and defined from top, then I think it's very, very difficult, nearly impossible to orchestrate in a company properly.
Yeah, and then I mean, maybe connecting also to what Kilian said before, and another important thing is to make sure that, of course, all these things we create awareness in the organization of all these things, but also that to drive success, I mean, everybody should work against like the same objective to grow and protect the cloud revenue. It's not the game of bookings. It's not the game of selling. It's the game of creating value. And if you create value, like the revenue comes naturally, right? So it's a game changing where like all the companies should focus on what really matters, right?
Perfect. I think it's a perfect transition. We talked about the root causes. Now let's tackle the solution and go into the glory land of what has been working, what have you seen in the market. So I would say it starts with the awareness, what we just talked about, that there's fundamental pillars which need to be set and clarified across the entire organization. But happy to hear your thoughts. What has been working in your...
Yeah. So maybe I can go first, right? I mean, you already mentioned, I mean, of course, to any problem, first you need to be aware of the problem, right? You already said that, Björn. Otherwise, you anyway cannot work on the solution, right? But aside from that, I mean, what we also realized, right? Of course, to fix this, you also need the right capabilities in place, right? And I mean, actually, Giuseppe and myself, we don't like to talk too much about functions, right? We rather talk about capabilities, right? Because normally, reporting lines and all of this beautiful stuff, right, shouldn't play a big role. We know it does to a certain degree and in some situations, but that's why we rather want to focus on capabilities, right? And aside from having then someone who's actually, in charge of the go-to-market, you also, of course, need the right capabilities. So what we see a lot is we have great vertical expertise, right? And people understand one domain really, really well, but you also need people who can connect the dots, right? And understand, okay, if we do something in the demand generation, how would this flow through the full funnel and might impact things that we do after the sale, right? And then the customer success, right? And whether you call it a go-to-market architect, a revenue architect, whatever you want to call it, right? But you need that capability in the organization because otherwise it's really tough, right?
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, just like to at the beginning, I mentioned like one typical case of disconnection or between like marketing and sales on the SAP pipeline and conversion. Like other example that we saw, like, you know, it's during moving from the left side to the right side of the bow tie, having like the right like transition of the necessary information to really realize the impact of the promised value to the customer, like what we call like end off, end over, whatever like the organization are calling this process, right? But this is very often it's feeling not very much thought through, right? Or not very much like considered like in how it should be considered, right? And then what happened basically, this caused like breaking like the process overall, right? Because but what we saw that very often the churn happens at the point of sale. If you sell to the wrong customer, if you're not able to define the right value drivers in the selling process, then I mean it's very hard and complicated, like to do what Kilian said. I mean, keep like the customer and expand on that customer, right? And very often you have again here like other kind of friction and conflict, like because this work is always like put on the shoulder of customer success, okay? And it looks like that only customer success is responsible of renewals and revenue. Well, it's not, right? I mean, step up, step down, and then like think about that everybody in the organization is responsible on the renewals, and responsible of the cloud revenue generally.
Ein kurzer Werbeblock in eigener Sache. Mein neues Go-to-Market-Buch ist endlich im Druck und kann ab sofort vorbestellt werden. Darin teile ich meine langjährige operative Erfahrung und tiefgehende Einblicke aus über 100 B2B-Software-Startups und Scale-Ups. Du bekommst praxisnahe Beispiele und konkrete Anwendungen aus meiner täglichen Arbeit mit Early-Stage-Startups und meinen Investments als Business Angel. Von der Segmentierung deiner Zielkunden bis zur Steigerung der Sales Velocity. Mein eigens entwickeltes Go-to-Market-Flywheel bietet dir einen umfassenden Leitfaden für sich selbstbeschleunigendes Wachstum. Den Link findest du in den Shownotes. Werbung, Ende. Und nun zurück zur Folge.
I like that churn perspective. Sorry to jump in, Kilian. So basically, what helped me, there are basically two models. If you have and if we look at the bow tie, or look at the bow tie or any kind of funnel, if you have a problem at one stage, always go back at least one or two steps. So that's you're smiling. Okay, so that's the first rule of thumb, or the golden rule. And the other thing is, and that's why I love working with B2B SaaS and AI companies so much, there is another component. Even if marketing, sales are doing everything right, they are pitching to the right clients, they are pitching the right value proposition, still it could be a product experience that is messing up everything. So it's rare. So often you see kind of over promising in marketing and sales, but just to tackle the discussion whether product is part of go-to-market or not, I see basically two. No, but seriously. So looking at the work process, what can go wrong is overstating, overselling in marketing and sales, and or not delivering what has been agreed on company-wise.
And I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, and let me jump a little bit like from the problem statement to maybe the solution statement, because this is something that we struggled a lot. Okay, in all the organizations, right? In Signavio, also in my time, in my previous time in Signavio before joining SAP, exactly to connect these two words, and we worked hard to build like a joint strategy cycle with product, okay, where we can combine I mean, what I say, like we can leverage like the beautiful healthy friction between the short-term sides of go-to-market that want everything like fix it now and sell it to make the quota now, and the long-term innovative vision of product that needs to create like a new level of growth and innovate in the market, right? So, and very often these two words again. They don't talk to each other. I mean, we worked a lot to build like this joint strategy cycle where go-to-market is included in the product strategy and brings like the customer feedback and the field feedback that must be considered like to do what you said, like to fix like immediate problem and help like moving value forward, but at the same time also has an influence on what is the innovation and how we can use this innovation to really build like a journey with customer to the expansion. So this was like a insanely massive effort that we drove, like, and then we made sure that this was like really communicated across the organization, because yes, can start top down, but if you don't have the buy-in and understanding of everyone in the organization, it's going to fail, right? So we drove this kind of what we call sense-making session, where we really discussed with each and every team what's the direction, what's the contribution, and having everybody challenge and buy in on that. And that was really helpful. Sorry, I jumped like back and forth.
It's super interesting, and please do so. So this is it's never. It should never be an interview. It's more and more kind of a.
Yeah.
It's so I love it. So I really truly love it. So one following up question. So when you describe these kind of sessions, are they still be in motion? So is this a continuous exchange? Is it a fixed format on a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly basis? So just to get a really crunchy operational internet here.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, and then Kilian, feel free to jump in. I mean, we established what I said, like a strategy cycle. I mean, we clear milestone, clear outcome. That at the end, I mean, the real the final output is to have like a roadmap and budget aligned, like between go-to-market and product. And yes, I mean, across the year we have like cadences that are touching separately the two organizations. So we discuss what matters in go-to-market, what matters in product, and then we have this healthy fight to say, hey, you know what? I mean, that's we should prioritize that or that. I mean, at the end, it's a capacity game, right? We have lots of constraints, right? So we need to balance, and it's not an easy game. But at the end of the day, I mean, of course, it's a journey iterative. We get better every year. But yes, it's a year repetitive process that we still run.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe just to add there, I mean, what we did there, Björn, right, was basically we had strategic buckets, if you want, right, where we wanted to invest across the product, and we created, if you want, you could call it pods, right? So there were people from product, and there were people from different go-to-market teams, right? Not only sales or pre-sales, but then also customer success management services partner, right? Who were coming together in this pot, and I mean, constantly exchanging on, hey, that's what we're hearing from customers, partners, and so on. And I mean, this may be something you should reflect in your product planning, right? And look into. And yeah, like Giuseppe said, it's been a massive effort, but it's still running, and I think we're also reaping the benefits there.
Yeah, and one thing, it is not like there's not only one direction from go-to-market to product, but also from product to go-to-market, because I mean, a go-to-market is helping product to build like and be more focused. I mean, where is our regional focus, for example? I mean, helping to define like which localization or which like specific feature we need to build for if we want to enter a new market. So it's definitely a bi-directional initiative that benefits both organization and the overall organization at the end.
And I know, Björn, I mean, one last comment, right? Because I mean, I was just reflecting on what we were discussing, and I know actually it's very likely a very unsexy statement to make, right? But it shows, right, in the end, it's a lot about process. No one thinks process is sexy, but actually you need process.
Process is sexy again. It's sexy again, man. Why?
Okay, now we make it sexy again.
It will stay sexy, yeah? So.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, I mean, if you don't have a proper process, and I mean, also thinking about AI, right, which we mentioned in the beginning, if you have a crappy process designed, I mean, what's the sense of making, it automated by AI? It's still a crappy process. And the experience that Giuseppe mentioned, I mean, if you have a crappy process, the experience for customers will still be bad, right? Yeah. So it's a lot of those foundational things, also in the context of go-to-market alignment, right? Establishing processes, practices, cadences not sexy, but absolutely needed.
And data,
So
and data,
before-
of course.
And data, of course.
So before we will, so there it will come. So we'll touch AI in a second. So I totally agree with processes. One, out of curiosity and also based on experience. So what I learned primarily dealing with early stage companies, but if a lot of times I go back a little bit, what is not right in terms of go back, but to really start with the why and really get this general understanding and alignment, and then double down on processes and data, etc. So this is kind of the true acceleration. And if you do not have this buy-in and or understanding, it's nearly impossible to get it sustainable, implemented, and it's so much harder. So
yeah, it's a big heavy lift, yes, and you need to bring all the organization with you, and you need to get everybody on board. Otherwise, it's a loose game.
So last, so we really have a strong cliffhanger with AI. So, but before, so just to get a perspective, roughly the total size of the current go-to-market organization. So because normally I deal with teams around talking about go-to-market 30, 40 people max. So a little higher. So roughly what size are we talking in your current example? Because the challenges are very similar in some ways.
Actually, I mean, that's a good question, Björn. So I would say Signavio by now is around about 600 to 700 people in go-to-market. LeanIX a little bit smaller, and WalkMe is similar size as LeanIX, so maybe 300-400.
Wow. All right. So let's tackle the last great topic. So what will change with AI?
Okay. I mean, I can take a first step, Björn, right? Because we're also sometimes having a debate, right, on AI and what impact it will have on go-to-market or not have on go-to-market, and how companies go about it, right? And don't get me wrong, right? Again, I will make maybe an unpopular statement, right? I think it's actually exciting what's out there, and I mean, you see it with agents, right? And you see all those startups like 11x and so on, right, with the AI SDRs. But I mean, maybe you also heard it before. For me, it's actually, if you haven't fixed the foundation, you shouldn't go fully on AI and jump on it. Should you experiment with it? Sure, maybe try it on one motion. But should you jump in right away? Not necessarily, right? For me, it's really like fix the foundations first, right, and get this go-to-market alignment going. Have a proper engagement model in place that you want to go, walk your customer through from the left to the right of the bow tie. Have the right data model in place, because if you then put AI on top, you will get a lot better results. I mean, I'm pretty convinced of that, right? Because if you just deploy it on a broken process, or take the AI SDR, if you don't have a good playbook, you don't have it defined the ICP. Yes, maybe you will have more volume at a lower cost, right, compared to being a human-led. But will you get better results? I have my doubts personally. So that's my take. And then Giuseppe.
Yeah, and then we talked a lot with Kilian on this topic, and probably I'm more excited, because yes, I totally agree that the foundation must be there, okay, and I think that AI will be a forcing function for organization to fix this foundation, right? Because then once it's there, I mean, you can really AI can really help, like, to bridge just like this gap that we discussed before, and really be like the partner in crime of each and every user to execute like a better process towards like efficiency, towards like customer value, and so on. I mean, we have a proof, like with I mean, recently we were in the sales kickoff in Miami, and we talked about like WalkMe X, like how WalkMe, like really the AI of WalkMe can help like organization in boosting like operativity, and it's magic. I mean, man, I mean, when if you think like if you put it on top of something that is like foundationally right, it's really close to magic. How this can help and boost productivity, and and give time at the end to people to focus on more complex stuff, to focus more on talking with customer and less on updating the CRM. Okay, so that is really like the real power that will unlock. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, and maybe one last thing to add, Björn, right? We can maybe also closing the loop to what we said in the beginning, right? Like growth at all costs is over, and I mean everyone is looking at more efficient growth. I think it's like Giuseppe said. I mean, in the end, yes, foundation needs to be there, but I think also a lot of investors will look at companies to adopt more AI to drive down unit economics, right? So I think there, like Giuseppe said, there will be a forcing function. While it's still true, like growth is valued higher than profitability, I think VCs and PE firms and so on, they will request that from founders, right? That they show both, also by leveraging AI.
Yeah, and it's a great handover to circle back at the to the beginning. So I totally, it's kind of boring because I agree with both of you. So no, because it's fascinating what's going on, and I think at least you and we already experienced kind of the efficiency and productivity boost. But it demands a strong foundation, and when we take the bigger picture, what I truly love about this session is the building blocks. So it starts from the general mindset, the vision, and true leadership. So it starts with an understanding of first principles of SaaS or any kind of recurring business model, and then derives through processes and structures and incentives to have a very strong foundation. And then you can add, so by default, you become more efficient, and AI can be an additional leverage to this. So this is at least how I see it.
No, absolutely. Fully agree, Björn.
All right. So last question for both of you, can be answered personally on a personal level or on a business level. So a part of applying AI, what are you learning right now, what you do not properly or sufficiently master yet?
Oh, that's a
That's
good one.
a good question.
And-
That's a good question, Björn.
And you go first.
Okay, I mean, actually, I have two things, Björn. So, on a personal side, I started doing origami with my son, and I have to admit, I have two left hands, so I still have a lot to learn there.
Nice one.
I mean, on the job, I think one thing that I'm slowly diving into, and I should do a lot more, is on the one hand side, getting better using WalkMe. So, I mean, I still need to do some courses and
Nice.
how to build content
Promo.
with WalkMe. And the other piece is actually, I also need to pick up my prompt game, right? Giuseppe is a lot ahead. Like, he likes to experiment more than I do. Maybe I'm too German and he's Italian. So, I mean, that's it for me, Björn. So those three
Right.
things.
Great insights. Thanks, Kilian.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I will, even if like Kina said that I'm more advanced like with prompting and so on. I mean, the pace of velocity of AI, it's astonishing, right? And I'm finding myself like really learning every day something new. When I realized that I got some concept to say I understand how I can leverage something, then I mean after a couple of days I understand that it's already old. I mean,
Outdated.
it's something new, right? And this is like it's my challenge. I'm trying like to get up to speed with all these changes and learn how to leverage my daily work.
Great. Guys, I loved the session so much. So thanks for taking your time. It was truly insightful, and I would say to be continued on the next project, or at least in a year's time. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for
I
having us,
loved it.
Björn.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
It was fun.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.